So we're going to talk about your first 3 ounces of gold. Now, why 3 ounces? Well, basically it's a number I plucked out of thin air. So when I was first looking to get stacking, I initially thought that 3 ounces would be a nice target because an ounce of gold was roughly equivalent to a month's worth of living expenses, and I figured that if I had 3 months worth of living expenses just in gold, it would be a nice little safety net, hedged away from inflation and all that good stuff, and it would be just there for the future, if I ever needed it. So the reason I didn't really have any, I suppose, ideas of storing more in gold is because as an investor, I like to get a better return for my money. I don't like to see it just sat there. I like to get dividends, I like to get rental income, I like to get all those other good things. But the thing with gold, it's not necessarily an investment for me. It's more of like a safety net or a bit of the long-term savings, if you like. So I wouldn't recommend just having gold and no funds in the bank, for example, as your safety net, because we do need liquidity. If you have a few months worth of living expenses just there in the bank ready, it will just get you out of a sticky situation, should perhaps a paycheck not turn up or whatever it might be. If there's a situation that arises, having that little bit of cash in the bank, then it could just save you, get you out of a sticky situation. The last thing you want to do when it comes to having gold and precious metals is be forced to sell at a time where it's not favourable. You really want to choose your exit with any asset. If you're forced by the market or by other factors, then it can be unfavourable and it can be an issue in terms of getting back what you want, and you could end up in a, sticky situation. So these 3 little piles here we've spread out. We have an ounce of 1/4 ounce lions, we have an ounce, just under an ounce because a Sov is not quite a 1/4 ounce of the 2022 Platinum Jubilees, and we have an ounce of random Victorias, which happen to be shields in this case, and 1 Georgian Dragon. So I'll just knock the camera all over the place, but the reason, why 3 ounces, that was my thought process when I started stacking. Now, it then grew to why not 6 ounces, why not 12 ounces, and so on and so on. And now, here we are. We've got some other goals, but let's not worry about those for today. So initially, you go for that 3 ounces perhaps. For you, it might be 10 ounces, it might be 12, whatever your budget is. It might be 1 ounce, it might be 1 sovereign, whatever that might be. Don't worry, what other people are aiming at. Just aim at an appropriate amount for you. Maybe that's none. Maybe you don't believe in gold, so probably not watching the video if you don't. But if that's you, then fair enough. Don't have any. That's up to you entirely. So I would say, have some cash in the bank to cover those expenses. It just gives you that safety net. You can sleep at night, and you don't have to sort of worry about what happens, at the end of the month if something doesn't come through, whatever that might be. So with that 3 months of gold, the easy way to break it down is how to actually get there. So if you've already got the money in savings and you've perhaps got money from another asset and you're looking to just start putting it in, even if you've got that money sat there for those 3 ounces, I wouldn't go all at once. I would ideally, if I was going to suggest to my former self, I would spread out those purchases and I would put it in parts. So for example, that might be 1 sovereign a month, it might be 1/4 ounce a month, it might be something along those lines, or it could just be every quarter or every other month, buying a couple. It is cheaper in a way to buy multiple coins because you have that economy of scale. If you're paying for postage, you only have to pay it once, not have to pay it 12 times. You only have to pay it once, per order, and not 12 times if you're doing it for every order. And therefore, it could save you a little bit of money in the long run. Now, that might be a negligible amount to you. If it is, then, take that as you wish. But in terms of the whole sort of 3 ounce goal, if you are going into the bigger coins, then nothing wrong with the 1 ounce coin. It does give you the option of doing less purchases, so less logistics, less times waiting in for the post, less times having to actually go through an order, argue with the bank about why you're trying to spend your own money on gold, etc, etc. There is the argument that perhaps the 1 ounce coin will become less liquid in the future as less people are able to afford them as the gold price rises. But I don't think really that's going to happen. You know, there's still people buying kilo bars, there's people buying 100-gram bars, and there's people buying multiple smaller coins. So, you know, it's rare that I would buy one sovereign at a time, but sometimes do. But, you know, it's often the fact that there are people buying multiples and spending quite considerable sums on gold at once. Now, I personally, like I say, like the cost averaging approach. So, depending on what your goal is, you know, maybe you just want that 3 ounces or whatever that number is for you, and then perhaps you're just going to sit and wait. You know, you don't need to keep stacking forever. Maybe you set that goal, and if you break it down, 3 ounces, quarter ounce a month, you know, it does fit quite nicely into a year. If that's a bit of a push, a bit of a stretch, then perhaps you could aim for an ounce a year over the next 3 years. Perhaps it will be, you know, when you get your bonus payment, or on a quieter month, you know, where you're not paying for holidays and Christmas and things like that. So there's plenty of different ways, and I'd say that the thing really with goals in general, I like to have a goal that's a bit of a stretch, but also not stupid. So I'm not going to say, oh, I need to buy a tube of Sovs every month, and that's my goal. You know, it'd be nice, but I'd be sacrificing a few other things there. You know, probably be walking everywhere. I don't think I'd be driving a car at that. But there are, you know, plenty of options, plenty of ways to do it. So you might have a creative way of doing it. Maybe you can save that money from not spending it in the first place. Maybe you've got some areas of your budget where you could, you know, carve out a real chunk of that money without really noticing much of a difference possible. You know, is there areas in your spending that you could improve on? That's another consideration. And the other thing is, could you earn more? Could you, you know, make that money up, put it into gold, you know, if it's what you want to do? Could you take money from a previous hobby? Maybe you've got equipment that would sell or something like that. Maybe you could take a downgrade in lifestyle, so perhaps not a very popular option, but, you know, you could work hard for a year, grind it, do whatever you need to do, get your gold sort of stack started, and then, you know, maybe it means driving around in a less fancy car, or doing a few more walks, or less meals out, whatever that means, could be an option. So hopefully this will perhaps trigger some thoughts, and if you're on the fence about whether to start stacking, then it's not my job to persuade you. You know, it's up to you. I'm not trying to pump gold or anything like that. It's up to you if you buy or not. Don't buy it just because I'm buying it. You know, I like gold, but it's up to me. It's my money, I can do what I want with. So, you know, don't do it just because I'm buying or somebody else is buying. The reality is, you know, there are risks. So if you want to see a video on the risks, then you'll be able to find them on the channel. So that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon.